Okay, this is going to be the first lesson in factoring for Algebra 2. We're going to start with the basics to build up to the factoring. The first thing, you're going to hear me say this a lot, is GCF, which stands for greatest common factor. Okay? Now, it has two components to greatest common factor. One sounds just like the acronym. It's the greatest number that can be divided into all terms. And when we say divided, meaning numbers that I could divide it and it wouldn't create a decimal. Okay? So this one, okay, now I always like to think of the smaller number will help me, okay, because what are the numbers that go into 10? Like 2, 5, and 10. What's the biggest one of those that would go into 12? That would be 2. So that is the number GCF. The second part is the variable, and this is going to sound weird. It is a variable that all terms have. Now here's the weird part. You pick the smallest exponent. Okay, and I know that's the only part about this greatest common factor that's weird. And here's what I mean. They both have a common variable of x, but this one is squared, this one is a 1, or just x. Okay? So the GCF, ironically, even though it sounds like I would pick the bigger exponent, I'm actually going to pick the smaller one. So this is the GCF here. Okay? Biggest number that goes into 4 and 28. Now, always the one to check. Can 4 go into 28? Yeah. Well, then that's the greatest common factor. Okay? Now, do they have an A? Yep, they both have an A. What's the smallest exponent? 7 or 1? Just going to be 1. Do they have a B? Yep, and the smallest exponent is 1 for both of those. So that is the number GCF. Now, 3 terms. 3, 9, 18. Now, the smallest number here is 3, okay? Factors of 3 are 1 and 3, okay? All right, well, can 3 go into 9? Yes. Can 3 go into 18? Yes. So 3 would be that GCF. They all have an X, okay? That's a squared, that's a squared, that's a 1, okay? Now, this has a Y and this has a Y, but since this one doesn't have a Y, it can't be the greatest common factor, okay? All right? Now, let's make this a 5, just so we have a different example here. Okay, all right. So, number wise, all right. I got 2 factors. 2 are 1 and 2. 2 goes into 10, but not 5. 5 goes into 10, but not 2. So there is no number GCF in this case. Now, do they all have a letter in common? Yes. They have an X, 2, 3, and 5. What's the smallest exponent? It would be 2. So that would be my GCF there. Okay? All right? Make this 7, just so we have something to go off of. Okay? I would like you guys to try this one on your own, these 5. Just find the GCF. Okay? Now, now we're going to take out the GCF and simplify. Okay? So 6 goes into 18, so that would be the number GCF. Okay? Now, this has a letter, this doesn't have a letter, so there's no letter. Now, what I do is I divide both terms by the GCF. Okay? Well, 6 divided by 6 would be 1. That would just be x, minus 16 divided by 6 would be 3. So this is what it would look like simplified. That's the GCF right here. Okay, and that's what's remaining. All right, biggest number that goes into 3 and 9 would be 3. They both have an x, so that's an x GCF. Okay, now, when you go to divide that, okay, do the subtraction of exponents. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 2 minus 1 would be 1. Minus 9 divided by 3. Since those are the same, they just go away. And so now that's simplified. All right. Biggest number that would go into 6 and 15. All right. Well, 6 has the factors of 1, 2, 3, and 6. what would be the biggest one that goes into 15? That would be 3. So that would be that part. They each have an a, smallest exponent would be that. They each have a b, smallest exponent is that. So what I want to do is divide both terms by that. Okay, 15 divided by that would be 5. Same one goes away. 2 and 1 would be 1. 6 divided by 3 would be 2. A and that would be A1. Those b's go away. So that's what it would look like simplified. Okay, numbers wise. 9 and 12 have numbers that go into each other, but 5 doesn't go into any of those. Okay, now this has an x. All right, this has an x in common and also has a y. The smallest exponent is y2. So what I want to do is divide all these by y2. Well, this should be pretty easy to figure out. Okay, so I got 9x squared. 4 minus 2 would be 2 for y plus 5x. These y's are exactly the same, so they go away. All right, minus 12x. 3 minus 2 would be y to the first. Okay, you don't have to put the ones there for exponents, but if you need to, okay, go ahead and do that. So basically, oh, oops, I skipped 4, sorry. Okay, biggest number that would go into all of these would be 3. Okay, they all have a c in common. They all have a d in common. Okay, so 6 divided by 2 is 3. This is a 1. 3 minus 1 would be 2. Those go away. Minus 12 divided by 3 would be 4. C1, D1. Once again, you don't have to put the ones there, but if it helps you, great. Plus 3 divided by 3 is 1. That goes away, that goes away. Okay, so that would be what that one would be. All right? Okay, go ahead and try this one on your own. Okay, all right, now we're going to get into the actual factoring part. Now, there's a lot of ways to teach factoring. Here's the best way I've found. If you have 4 terms, go ahead and make a box. Your first term is going to go in here. Your second term is going to go in here. Your third term is going to go in here. And your fourth term is going to go in here. Now, you should have learned how to factor in Algebra 1. And what factors are these things with parentheses, and they have signs in between them. Okay? Now, I'm going to put x cubed. I'm going to put positive 8x squared, positive 7x, okay, positive 56. Now, here's all you have to do to factor it. We're going to take the GCF out of each row, okay? So there's a 1 here, 1 and 7. Well, 1 is not going to have a GCF, okay? So I can put 1. That's okay. That's easy. Okay, x cubed and x, they both have an x in common. That's the smaller exponent. I move down to this row. Biggest number that goes into 8 and 56 would be 8. Okay, now this has an x squared and this doesn't, so there's no x there. Now, here's what's important. Whatever sign is here goes right there. Now, you have 2 options on how to figure out the top, depending on your math skills. The idea is that 1x times this is going to give me 1x cubed. Okay? So that would be 1x squared. Now, the other thing you could do is you could just take the GCF out of this. Well, 1 is 1. The smallest exponent of these would be 2. Okay? So that's another way of doing it. And then you would take the GCF going this way. Okay? All right? Biggest number in common would be 7. They don't have an x. And this sign right here, just like the last one, would go there. So my factors are 1x plus 8, 1x squared plus 7. Okay? And that's how you factor. Okay? And now we're just going to practice that. So all we have to do, first term, second term, third term, fourth term. Okay? Going this way. All right, 8 and 7. Do any numbers go into each other? No. So I'm going to put a 1. They both have an x, so that's an x, and that's the smallest one. Okay, biggest number that would go into 56 and 49 would be 7. And since that's a plus, that would be a plus. Okay, going this way, biggest number that goes into 8 and 56 would be 8. Okay? And if you can guess and check that. You 56 divided by 8. Oh, yeah, that works. Okay? All right? Okay, now, they both have a letter in common. That's x, and the smallest exponent is x squared. Biggest number that goes into 7 and 49 would be 7. Since this is a minus, that would be a minus. Now, they don't have an x, okay? So my factors are 1x plus 7, 8x squared minus 7. Okay? Let's do two more together. Okay? So let's go ahead and draw this one. 16x cubed, positive 10x squared, positive 8x, positive 5. Okay, biggest number that would go into 8 and 16 would be 8. X would be the letter in common, and that's the smallest exponent. Biggest number that goes into 10 and 5 would be 5. They don't have a letter in common, and then this sign goes right here. Very important you write those signs in, okay? Now, once again, you can figure out 8 times this gives me this, 8 times this gives me this. But the other thing you do is, what's the biggest number that goes into 16 and 10? Would be 2. They both have an x in common and squared. So here's how you know if you're right. This times this should give you that number. Okay? All right? Okay? This times this should give you that number. All right? What's the biggest number in common? 8 and 5. That's going to be a 1. Since that's a plus, that's a plus. They do not have a letter. So 8x plus 5, 2x squared plus 1. Okay? Let's do this last one here. 15x cubed, 40x squared, negative 6x, negative 16. Okay? Biggest number that goes into 6 and 15, let's say 3. Yep, that would be 3. They both have an x in common. Now, once again, if you're good at math, you should know what number goes here. Okay? All right? As far as if your arithmetic is good. All right? All right? This one, your biggest number that goes into 16 and 40 would be 4. Since that's a plus, that's a plus. It does not have a letter in common. Once again, if you've got good arithmetic skills, 3 times what would give you that? That would be 5. That's also the greatest common factor there. From a letter standpoint, I got x, the smallest exponent is x squared. And if you follow the rules there, that's how that would multiply. Okay, biggest number that goes into that, and that would have to be 2. That is a minus, so that has to be a minus. They do not have a letter in common. So if you got good arithmetic skills and you can work quickly with the multiplication, a lot of this will save you some time. So that's how you factor. Okay? All right? All right, so here are the ones I'd like you to try. Okay? All right? And that's the first lesson on factoring in Algebra 2.